repatriated from China is expected to land today at the Gateway. They already landed at the Gateway International Airport in Polokwane. The group, including volunteers and SANDF officials, is now en route, transported by road to the Ranch Hotel in Polokwane, where they will be quarantined for 21 days. Meanwhile, a Wits medical student has been quarantined after being exposed to the coronavirus. It's understood the student was in contact with a person who had the virus. The student is being closely monitored and hasn't displayed any symptoms. Other universities are on alert too. SABC reporter Gillian Pillay and cameraman Given Masetoni visited the University of Johannesburg to assess their preventative measures.
Accessed by hundreds of students daily, tertiary institutions have beefed up anti-infection measures. The access control biometric system here has been temporarily suspended.
But what we've done as practical measures is, of course, we're looking at how are we cleaning our facilities? Are we taking precautions? Are we washing our hands, for example? Or do we have enough soap in our bathrooms, hand towels, hand sanitizers? And we're implementing this across campuses, across our lecturing halls, across our offices, and the broader facilities that we provide at the university, even on our buses, actually.
Staff travels abroad have also been suspended.
The first call of action is to see, can we interact without actually physically having to meet? I mean, with the fourth industrial revolution, there's every opportunity to do online engagement. So Skype with each other, whatever, teleconferencing and so on. And there, some snags that we need to solve around time zones and so on, but we can always reach out in other ways.
The global pandemic has raised mixed emotions.
There's a level of high risk because, you're in such a packed facility, so there's no way that you can think, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be safe, I have these measures. But then the next person, do they have those same measures, and how will they affect you?
I personally am not entirely worried because I've seen the statistics on how many people are getting infected and how many are actually dying from it.
Here in UJ, they are taking actions like don't use the fingerprint when you enter to the campus.
Everyone is so chilled about it because we haven't had an incident that's happened inside the school or anywhere, for instance our families.
We have a lot of students in the school, so with interacting with people, we do often interact with most people. So it is quite scary not knowing whether the person has it or not.
Meanwhile, Wits University is awaiting the outcome of the quarantine students' test results. Gillian Pillay, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Preventative measures to curb the spread of the deadly coronavirus now include no kissing. That's the word from Deputy Health Minister Dr. Joe Phaahla.
A special joint sitting of the two houses of parliament to debate the country's and the world's biggest killer, tuberculosis, ahead of the World TB Day on March 24th. And naturally, the debate was intertwined with the global and local spread of the coronavirus. The Deputy Health Minister says they have received full support from the Zion Christian Church on curbing the coronavirus over the Easter weekend, and he says prevention is better as there is no cure for the virus.
Social distancing is another method to limit the spread of the disease, standing around a meter away from other people. As we have seen in Italy and other countries in Europe, unfortunately, honorable members, this social distance and avoidance includes, unfortunately, kissing, shaking of hands. Avoiding kissing and shaking of hands is also recommended.
The chair of the Health Committee says deaths caused by motor vehicles accidents and TB must be highlighted in the same way as the coronavirus.
Heightened awareness and attention that coronavirus has received by many should be extended to the motor vehicle accident problems in our country and also TB as a social problem.
Political parties are also concerned about the effects on the poor and those living with HIV and AIDS, as well as those diagnosed with TB.
If just 1% of our HIV/TB patients contract COVID-19, approximately 46,000 people, will our designated hospitals and quarantine wards cope? Not a chance.
The country is sitting at 17 infections of coronavirus, which is declared a global concern, and yet in South Africa, research and information dissemination is lacking on how coronavirus will affect people with tuberculosis and HIV, and measures taken in this regard.
We'll definitely come back to that story. Let's go live now to Chriselda Lewis as we give you rolling coverage of the arrival of South Africans who were based in Wuhan. Chriselda?
Well, that's right, Desiree. Very good morning to you once again. Apologies, we had to move to a new direction. As you would know, the story is unfolding now. All the buses that were brought here to the runway on at the international airport here in Polokwane filled up to capacity. You would see there that all those who disembarked, the citizens who were evacuated from Wuhan, have now been placed in those buses. Let me count: 1, 2, 3, 4. Some of the buses have some of the luggage of those citizens who have just landed. So we're expecting in just about a short while, Desiree, that these buses will move from here and will take one of the routes here, and then we'll head towards the ranch resort, where there you have it. Some of those buses are leaving at the moment, and Desiree, we're really going to try. It is, in as much as we're really trying to bring this live to you, we're trying to move as fast as we can. We'll track this convoy as it leaves the international airport here in Polokwane. We'll really plead with the authorities to perhaps have our vehicle in front of these. And the reason why I think it's important for us to bring this moment to you, of course, you would know it has been a story that has dominated the headlines over the past couple of weeks since South Africa had announced it was going to evacuate its citizens from where the virus had first broken out. So we're expecting in just about a few moments for the buses to leave here. And it doesn't seem, Desiree, from where I'm standing, I'm really trying very hard. Let me just gauge here very quickly if this bus is going to stop behind the other. That's right. So what's happening now is that the buses are basically right behind each other. It will be a convoy from here to the ranch resort, about 21 kilometers away from here. We'll try to track that for you. So also the social distance that has been kept between these South Africans who arrived here. I managed to get a glimpse of that aircraft yesterday in a live video that was sent to me. You could see that they're not placed too close to each other. They have some of those masks on as well. So a momentous occasion, one would say, a mammoth task which is carried out by the South African government in ensuring that all those who wanted to come back. Remember, Desiree, at some point there were about 184 South Africans who had indicated they wanted to come back to South Africa, but that number has since now dropped. And of course, these ones who are here now are those who indicated they want to come back home. Their fears of remaining in Wuhan were that they needed rather to be in South Africa, and until it sort of stabilizes, then they perhaps return to those countries. Amongst them, as I indicated, were South African students who had graduated from Hubei University now at the end of January. So they were not scheduled to remain in that country. So when the virus basically had broken out in that country, they then had to be locked down there together with everybody else. So the level of frustration, certainly on their part, was certainly something that made known to the South African government, that made known to the media. So eventually here today, they've arrived. And I guess a lot would need to be dealt with in terms of the stigma, Desiree. I'm sure you've heard from some quarters in the country, some unhappiness about them coming back from Wuhan, of them coming to spend 21 days in isolation at this ranch. But government has really gone out of its way to allay fears that every single one of these South Africans as well, I mean, the precautions that they went through just to ensure that they're able to carry this out with precision is, I think, is certainly something that can be commended on this part. We've been on this route for quite some time now in engaging with government on exactly what is happening, and I'm sure one of the other individuals that will be very pleased with what has happened here, I alluded earlier on to the tweet by the Health Minister, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, but one of the other individuals certainly will be the Commander-in-Chief, President Cyril Ramaphosa, because you would recall when he sent off a team of volunteers who were going to evacuate these South Africans from Wuhan City in China. Basically, he had wished them well and basically painted a picture of a South African National Defence Force that was not just there to protect the country, but was also willing to participate in developmental projects. So this would fall under that category, in that what they clearly have demonstrated, these volunteers, is a certain level of patriotism in saying that they would be the ones to put their heads on the block and go to a place considered very high risk to evacuate these South Africans from that particular area. I think a lot of fears had also been allayed when the president of China, Xi Jinping, had visited Wuhan City, which gave an indication that the Chinese government was quite comfortable with sending the president there. He had visited some of the affected people in hospitals, and that gave an indication perhaps that somewhat the Chinese government believes that it has the situation under control. That was where, of course, the virus itself had first been detected. So for South Africa now to have successfully, over a short period of time, evacuated its citizens from Wuhan City, it certainly is something that can be applauded. But the next step for that, which I think the health department would certainly need to have its hands on, is to ensure that all the necessary tests are done to ensure that no one may have picked up the virus just hours perhaps before they had left that city. I don't really want to cause panic pertaining to that, because the South African government says, as far as it's concerned, all the people in these buses now, they're satisfied with their health condition. Desiree, I'm going to step out of shot once again. We're waiting for these buses to leave. I'm trying to negotiate quite a lot here with the authorities to have our vehicle in front of that convoy. Whether I'll succeed, you'll certainly know once you see those visuals on air. But breaking news now is that these buses, which of course are ferrying these South Africans to the quarantine zone, they're going to leave any time from now. Desiree, I'm going to hand it back to you, but we'll stay on these visuals. Allow me, please, to go and negotiate some space with our authorities on how perhaps we'll be able to give you those visuals as we proceed with that convoy to the ranch resort where they'll be quarantined for 21 days. We'll stay on these visuals, Desiree.
There's no problem. As long as we're the distance is not good. So we're still safe. We are loading the last one.
Chriselda, while we have you on the line, our colleague Sophie was reporting that some roads, there might be some road closures in Polokwane as this group of people try to make their way to the quarantine zone. Do we have any detail there?
Desiree, no details from where I am standing. My colleague Sophie Mokoena and I are at different vantage points, so I guess you'll see all of that once we bring you live as the convoy itself proceeds from here. What I have seen is some traffic police, which will of course lead this convoy to the ranch resort. And what I can certainly tell you is that, of course, there would need to be a route that is set aside specifically for them to be able to pass. So from where I'm standing at the airport, I don't have any visual access to what is happening outside it. I'd be able to best give you an answer to that, Desiree, once we leave this particular vantage point.
All right, we're going to take it back now from our colleague Chriselda Lewis. The breaking story there that all 3 buses about to start making their way to the official quarantine zone at the ranch, and we will be following that story and try to make every effort to bring you every aspect of that trip as far as we are able to. Stay with us here on SABC News for that. But another story that's just